Don't you dare let your past dictate who you are. The next step is forgiving yourself. We're not perfect, man. I jacked up. I said that earlier. We have to forgive ourselves. Maybe we made a decision that really, all the decisions we make is kind of a sum to where we are right now. So you got to forgive yourself, learn from it, and keep moving.
What's up, friends? Rob Sevilla, and I'm back with a brand new Spitting Fire podcast for all of you. And I am with my man, Chad Free, today. Chad, will you say what's up to everyone?
What's up, everybody? I am so glad to be here. Spitting fire.
Absolutely. And I know you're going to spit some serious fire, my man. But before we dive into that, as always, I'd like to remind you why I interview leaders in different industries like Chad. And that is, I feel part of my mission is to deeply inspire all of you to live on purpose. And we're going to talk about that here shortly, but also to be the leader that I believe God has called all of you to be. So, Chad, we're going to dive right in. And as always, I like to start with just a kind of an overview of your story. And you feel free to share what you want, and then we'll just go from there.
Awesome. Well, listen, thank you for having me on here. I'm pumped up. I see what your mission is, and it's so much aligned with where my heart is and my mission that I feel like God's calling me to. So I'm pumped. Thank you for having me. So I am Chad Free, and I am from South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina. I'm just an old country boy over here, right? And I have a beautiful wife of 18 years, two boys. My oldest is a senior in high school, and my youngest is a senior in middle school. So 18 and 13. And we're just totally proud of them. We're very blessed. I grew up here in South Carolina, had a wonderful family, have a wonderful family. My mom was that one that just always gave me love and hugs and kisses. And if she comes anywhere around me right now, I'm going to get a hug and a kiss right there. And she's going to tell me how special I am. My dad, he was on the other side of the spectrum. Stone cold hustling machine, right? I mean, just hardcore. And I'm like, man, if I could just get this much of what my mom showed me from my dad, I'll be all right. But I didn't know people were different, right? But if he said it once, he said it 137 times. Never take advantage of people. Stand up for people that are being took advantage of, and celebrate people's successes. Be happy for them. So I listened to that. So I've got my mom in me, but I also have a very, very protective spirit. And that's kind of a part of my story. Just came from a long line of entrepreneurs, and, graduated Clemson University, go Tigers, and went straight into the working world and pretty much went right into entrepreneurship. The bottom line is I feel like I climbed a lot of ladders, but they were against the wrong building. And we'll go in more about that earlier or a little bit later. And I guess I heard this term the other day. I feel like I was a successful failure almost. Now it had to happen to make me who I am today. But every time I would climb a ladder, there was some kind of obstacle. There was unfulfillment that was taking place. And I knew that that's not where God wanted me. So anyway, then I, got into the financial services about 11 years ago. And I'm that guy that I want to know what's next.
Yeah.
Everybody has a next step, and even the best can become better. Everybody's got a next step. And so that's what I did. I was just aimlessly wondering and wandering, but I was taking next steps without a direction to go into. And that'll lead me to what I call a divine disruption to where I am today.
Sure. And I love some of the nuggets that you've already dropped there. And listen, some of you need to go back and if you're listening on the audio version, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you need to go back and listen to a couple of those things that Chad talked about. I love that about the successful failure part. I've studied a lot of successful people, have interviewed leaders, and they've all challenged me, and I've heard them say, through their podcast, in their books, or whatever content I'm consuming, to increase your failure rate.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That it's just all part of the journey. So I want to stop there for a second. Chad, what if somebody's listening or watching this today and they're about to quit because maybe they've had, several failures in a row, and they don't understand that that's part of the process? What's some truth, what's some life that you can speak in them today to not give up on that dream?
Well, I think you need to look at the core. What is the core issue? A lot of times our brains, I really started digging into mindset, and our brains automatically and naturally are in a reflexive and protective surviving spirit or mode, right? And
Sure.
so we don't like to be told no. We don't like, a lot of us have fear of rejection. We all want
Sure.
people to like us. So when you're an entrepreneur or in sales, we get a lot of no's. We have to make
Right.
calls. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
And we don't like that. So our mindset automatically goes to kind of survival mode. But what is survival mode? Let's back out of this. Let's get back over here where we're comfortable. And now we're losing out on opportunities. So if we recognize that that's what's going on, and we're intentional to call it what it is,
Sure.
then I think that's what gets you over the hump and keeps you pursuing, and don't give up. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, I love that, because even myself, I've had seasons where I've just failed miserably, and it makes you want to quit. It makes you want to give up. It makes you not want to go on. But I love what Ed Milet says: is your dream for sale? And you have to you know what I mean? If you don't have those deep, compelling reasons why you're doing what you're doing, then you are going to sell that dream cheap to that fear, to that insecurity, to that doubt, to that failure. So I definitely love what you're saying. Another thing that you said in the beginning of your intro was you talked about taking that next step. I call it taking massive imperfect action, meaning the action that we initially take is not going to be perfect.
Right.
You said I didn't have to have every detail. I didn't have to know everything. I just had to keep taking that step, and that there were probably some seasons in your life that you just maybe stumbled through it until you got really good. Dabo Sweeney says it this way, that we have to embrace the suck.
Yep.
Right? And many of us don't want to embrace the suck, that we're not willing to suck at something long enough until we get good at it. So talk about that just for a second. What kept you going in those seasons of maybe you didn't know everything, or it didn't seem like things were going right, but you didn't quit?
Well, I had what my coach, Coach Burt, calls a because goal. And so we about to get deep. All right.
Sure.
Is that
Let's do
go
it.
with you if we get
Let's
deep?
go, man. Let's go.
All right.
We'll take the floaties off. Let's go.
That's right, man. Yeah. So a because goal, a lot of people say their why. And actually, in his new book, I'm giving him a little shout out, Flip the
Sure.
Switch.
Yep.
One of his chapters is called Screw Your Why. And why is kind of manufactured. It's kind of an
Sure.
automatic. Like that's our
Yeah.
family. But what drives us? Like a kid, when you say why, well, because why? Because why?
Sure.
So, I was climbing all these ladders, taking all these steps, and I was so ambitious that I found myself living 5 years down the road, 2 years down the road. I wasn't present. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with a calculator in my hand. If this deal comes through, then it's going to be better, right? But here's what happened. Again, we'll probably go back to this story, but my because goal, just to jump into it, I never even realized this, but my dad had a house paid for when he was 35 years old. He
Okay.
retired when he was in his late 40s. My because goal was to be like my dad, and I did
Mm,
not even realize it. It started from a very young age. And so the fact that I was not hitting the markers that he hit in his life caused me
mm,
to live in panic mode. And God would constantly tap me on the shoulder, but it wasn't hard enough to really get my attention. So he let me
mm.
go do what I think I was supposed to do, what I thought
Right.
was best for me. And so finally, I hit rock bottom,
Mm,
and it was bad. And as a Christian and a believer, I would tell you that I totally depend on God. I would tell
yeah.
you that because that's just what we do, right?
Right.
But sometimes we don't realize that we have so much control, or we
Sure.
want to maintain so much control,
Yeah.
that when I did hit rock bottom, and I'll share that story too a little bit, I was crying. I found myself in the closet weeping, and
Mm,
I thought my whole world was going to crash from a financial standpoint. And I'm the
mm.
financial guy.
Yeah.
So you're talking about humility, humble. But when this is the image that I had, when I truly cried out to him and truly had to depend on him and was calling on him that I need him, it's almost like, well, now that I got your attention, son, sit right there in that chair and let me show you what you've
Yeah.
been doing. And it was almost
Yeah.
like a slideshow. It was at that moment that he said, you've been living your entire life to be somebody that you're not. And I can't bless somebody that
Mm,
you're not. I want to bless who you are. And I
that's good.
created you on purpose for a purpose. And the
Yeah.
moment that I heard that, I was so still broke financially. But if I can just tell you right now, the burden that was lifted off,
Yeah.
the fulfillment that just hit me right then, man. My heart had to break for him to do something new.
Yeah.
And he had been calling me in to a marketplace ministry, to an integrated life. There is no separation. I don't have a Jesus tab open right here. He's my operating system, and that's what he'd been trying to tell me the entire time. That's what he wanted for me. So when
Yeah.
my alignment became right, my assignment became so clear, and God has opened up so many doors. And let me tell you something, only he can stop me now because I got a can't stop, won't stop about me.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. You're spitting some fire right out of the gate, and man, I was looking for the choir, man, to start singing, brother. I think we were coming down to the altar there for a minute, but I totally agree. And I know that off camera we talked about the divine disruption. You mentioned it briefly in the intro, so I do want to dive deeper into that because something similar from a spiritual sense, even as a pastor, I had a divine disruption about almost 3 years ago now, 2.5 years ago.
Right.
So I get it, and it's hard when God does that, but
Yep.
it's also so beautiful because it sobers you up on so many levels
Yep.
and allows you to see clearly. And as you talked about getting in alignment, there's so many people that are incongruent in their life, especially with that divine assignment that I believe God has for them. So let's talk about that divine disruption. Whatever you feel most comfortable sharing, we would love to hear you. Just talk about that.
Yeah. So I think what it boils down to is I kind of told you I was living my life in a panic mode.
Sure.
And again, because I was running late, I was not hitting the markers that my dad had hit in his life. And
Mm,
I, again, didn't realize that I was even doing that. He didn't put that on me. I was
yeah.
obsessed with that. My dad and I
Yeah.
are super tight. My family, we're tight. But I was obsessed with that. And I guess it began as an early age, and just, man, I want his attention, like my mom, but people are different, you know? Um,
Sure.
so what happened was about 3 years ago, just before COVID hit, as a matter of fact, my son and I went to a men's conference, and there was a preacher there, and he made a statement, and he said, "There's some people in here that God's been calling you to do something, or you
Mm,
have a calling on your life, but you're so obsessed with what's on the other side of the door
mm,
that you don't want to take a step until you see the other side of the door." And that's not how it works. God wants you to say yes to Him and take a step towards Him and trust that what's on the other side of the door is in your best interest. Because it's not about us, it's about Him, right? And
sure.
Proverbs 19:21 has really came true. It's me. We can make all the plans we want. If
Yeah.
you don't hear anything I say as entrepreneurs, I know how your minds are wired, because mine's wired like that. We go to bed thinking about it. We wake up thinking about it. We all over the
Right.
place.
Right.
We can make all the plans we want, but God's purpose will prevail. Why fight that, man?
Yeah.
Why fight that, So soon as I made that decision, I'm like, oh, he's talking to me. I went down front, I made a decision. I said, God, you got my attention. I know that still small voice, and you've been calling me to do something. And so I said yes. And I'm just going to be honest with you. It went downhill from there, from that decision.
Mm,
COVID hit. Nobody wanted to move money or mess with money at that point in time. But then some doors started opening. And then some bigger doors started opening. And so then I found myself, wow, okay, great. Thank you, Lord. So I had good intentions, but I had an opportunity open up for me that I thought, you know, only God could open up. And He did, but He did it for a different
sure.
reason than what I thought He was doing it for.
Sure.
So I landed a role to where I worked with high net worth individuals. Actually, I worked with their advisors across the country,
Hmm.
and I created plans for the advisors to present to their clients. Now, we're talking some NFL team football owners, some CFOs of some very big retailers. And so I'm like, perfect. I've got this. We got some big ticket items, right? That I'll receive overrides off of. This is my shot. I love the financial industry. Finally, I think I have found my opportunity that's going to get me to where I'm trying to go. And
Sure.
so there I went. And man, I'm climbing the ladder, right? But then some things just
Yeah.
started not feeling right. But you know what? Hey, God opened this door, so I'm going to suppress those convictions, because surely that's not, I don't want to rock the boat on this opportunity.
Sure.
Well, there was just some ideas and some ideals and I just feel ethical with somebody that I was working with. And we worked side by side. And so some of that was a reflection on me. If that's how
Sure.
things were being portrayed, because we were working closely together, then I'm like, hey, finally it got all over me. That's not who I am. So I called a meeting, and this is where the divine disruption happened. I was on a draw. Okay. They put me on a draw in this position, and these plans take a long time to pay out. So I was barely getting by. I'd taken two personal loans just to get me by, and I'm telling my wife every day, it's coming, honey. It's coming. How many entrepreneurs out there probably have said that to their spouse? I promise you it's coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was a light at the end of the tunnel that had gotten up to about 100,000, 100 plus thousand in commissions that would eventually be coming in. And so that's what kept me going. But I had a meeting with the CEO of the company, and I shared my concerns and just asked if we could modify my role or do something different.
Sure.
And it's like, yeah, we'll figure something out. Well, the next morning, I started getting texts from people in the office. I was remote working from home, and I developed some good relationships with people in that office. Why did you resign? Where are you going? I'm getting texts from these people that say that. I didn't resign. This
Sure.
is news to me. So, Rob, that's when, man, that's when it happened. It's like, what do I do? I'm already stretched out. I'm already stressed out to the max. I'm carrying this all on my shoulders. I don't want my family to feel the boat rocking. So I feel like I'm not only keeping it up, but I'm keeping it stabilized too, man.
Sure.
And so now the light at the end of the tunnel went completely out. Now what do I do? I'm broke. The financial dude is broke. And that's what led me to the closet, just by myself in a fetal position, crying my eyes out. And it was the worst pain that I've ever been through. And it was the scariest moment that I've ever been through. But it had to happen, man.
Sure.
Because once that divine disruption took place, it's like I walked out of that closet a new person. And I started living a fulfilled life. Instead of chasing profit, I chased my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so I chased my alignment with Him. And again, that's where things change. Matter of fact, I'll tell you this. I called one of the advisors that I'm very close to, and I just broke down with him, telling him my story. And I'm like, hey, I don't know what to do. This is what happened. I'm sorry. Because my
Sure.
advisors thought a lot of me.
Yeah.
You know, we tight, right? And he said, I need you to come to Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee. I need you to come to an event. I'm going to pay wheels up to wheels back down airline tickets. He said, if I see you buying one bottle of water, I'll take that as you disrespected me. He said, but I want you to come to this event. I didn't know what event I was coming to, Rob. But I went to my coach, Coach Burt. Didn't even know who he was. And I went to the Monster Nation conference. And everybody that spoke talked about purpose. Doug Wood,
Mm-hmm.
Coach Burt, all the speakers, step into your purpose. And so I'm an emotional basket case trying to be cool and professional, but it's like God aligned all of that. And I looked at Coach Burt in the eye right after that, and I said, you and I are going to do something together. This has changed my life. So 1 year later, I was one of the speakers at that same conference, Monster
Wow.
Nation. Just sharing this story right here. And it's been a game changer. Money is not an issue to me anymore. Now it's a resource instead of my source. And I think God had to show me that, man. I
Good.
was living for that.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, I'm not one to talk about money, but money it's coming to me because I truly have a connection with people and I want the best for them. Not just financially, I want them to experience what I'm experiencing now, this fulfilled life that God
Yeah.
always talked about. And I don't know that I experienced it since I was even a kid, man. But I
Yeah.
promise you right now, I'm present. I eat up my time with my kids. I'm intentional. Man, my kids, ooh, that's something I can't hardly talk about. I'll get so choked up. My wife, I pursue her. I love them. They know how much I love them. But I'm going to tell you right now, when Chad, the new Chad, came back, and when I came to my wife, hey, honey, it's the new me.
Yeah.
Guess what? She had grown accustomed to the old me.
Yeah.
So I had to be intentional in working and pursuing that relationship again, because she had grown accustomed to the shell that I had become. And that hurt
Yeah.
me, man. That hurt me a lot.
Yeah.
But God is
Yeah.
good, brother. I'll tell you right now. And the opportunities that he's opened, like this right here and some of the others that I can mention, man, it's huge. Huge.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so much in that story that I love that you shared. And I just feel like I need to pause for a minute. I feel like God has just wanted me to say this on camera, or if you're listening into this today when this drops, that maybe this is your divine disruption. Maybe you're like what Chad used to be, or even I used to be, where we were chasing the wrong thing and where we were incongruent and we were out of alignment with the assignment that God has. And maybe this is the beginning steps of that divine disruption for you, that God is trying to get your attention and say, stop, right? This is, I'm doing this for your good. And I want you to hear this story because you're chasing the wrong things. And I'm using this story of Chad's to get your attention and to get you to do an about face, if you will, and chase me. And I love what you're saying, because for me, living on purpose includes that life abundantly in John 10:10. But the life abundantly really is him, right?
Yes.
That's where we're most fulfilled. That's where we're most satisfied, is in him. And I love what you said. I want to make sure I quote it correctly, but you said that money was just a resource, not my source. Okay,
Absolutely.
will you expound on that just a little bit more? Because I know me, and like you said, I know how entrepreneur minds work as well. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs that listen and watch this, but we're so focused on the money part of it that it gets in the way and it makes it messy and the waters get muddied, and we forget to live on mission, and instead we live for money. Will you expound on that and maybe give us some action steps to how to break out of that if there's someone listening to this today that's dealing with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I usually open up my talks, I didn't hear, but just telling people what I believe. And I believe everybody's created on purpose for a purpose. And I
Sure.
believe that mindset and money are two of the biggest things that prevent people from ever pursuing that purpose. And that's
Mm,
because they're focused on surviving
yeah.
and their life is being lived, and they are not living their life because their finances are controlling them. It's a
Yeah.
consumption, man. They're totally focused on money as a way of survival because that's what we're supposed to do, guys.
Right.
We're supposed to take care of our house. And sometimes that's how we justify it. But we got to break
Yeah.
that down a little bit more, because we can say, I would tell you money, I don't have a love for money. I would tell you that. And I feel like I didn't. I wasn't letting that be my God, but all my attention and focus was on it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, once that flip, think about that. When it's a source, you may have a lot of value to bring to people in whatever you do,
Yeah.
but the connection is not a true connection, I feel, when you're wanting that sale. Now, you're doing right and you're passionate about it and
Yeah.
you're doing the right thing, but there's not a true connection with that person when you're chasing the money. When you don't worry about the money and you not worry, but your concern becomes getting somebody to their B, their A now, get them to their B, help solve their problems, find their ambition, that's when things start to move. And then money just starts coming in. That's what it's worked out for me. The
Sure.
provision is there for my vision, for his vision.
Sure.
So there's provision for vision. There's an income for impact. So money is a resource now for me. I'm divorced that gotta have it. He is my source.
Yeah, that's good.
And until you come to, that's why, I say wake up. I wish I could be the wake up caller for everybody. But sometimes the
Sure.
wake up call comes from that divine disruption. It comes from
Sure.
that hard time, that wreck where you have to really evaluate things, you know? And I think that one of the biggest things that opened my mind, if you don't mind, the four parts of our nature: mind, body, heart, and spirit. All right. I'll share a story with you just real quick, but you can apply this to anything. So I did mixed martial arts for years, right? And 3 years into it, as an adult too, I didn't try to get in the cage. I just wanted to learn a little something, and just protect my family if I need to, and just build some confidence, and that camaraderie was there too with my guys. So I made it to the
Right.
fight club. All right, made it to the fight club, and I'm a yellow belt. All those guys are brown and black belts. So what does that mean? Do I take that as a compliment, or am I fresh meat for them to beat up on? Well, to be in the fight club, we got to go compete. So we did the whole mixed martial arts gamut, stand up and jujitsu. But when we went to compete, we would test our skills out doing just a kickboxing tournament. To test our ground skills out, we would just do a jujitsu tournament. So I had my first kickboxing tournament in Knoxville, Tennessee. My mama's there, my wife is there, and I am ready to go. Well, they don't line you up with experience. They line you up with weight class. So your boy got paired up with a guy that's been in it for 30 years, has his own karate school. I'm in it 3 years, and I see my guys talking, and they're grinning and smiling. And I looked over there, and one guy said, "Hey, just go in there and fight your fight, man. Fight your fight.
Yeah.
Just do your thing. You fight us, and you're going to do fine." All right, so here's what I'll tell you. I had the willpower. I had the confidence. I was tough. I'm ready to do this. So let's go. Well, I went out there, and your boy won the first round.
Wow.
Oh, I took total control. I'm just going to tell you that right now. I'm putting it out there. So my sensei, at the end of that first round, just so happens my sensei was that guy's sensei. That was his first kid student years and years and years and years ago. And this guy was grand champion, dragon, this, that, and other, whatever, of the Southeast. So he looked at me and he said, "Go back out there and do the same thing that you just did." So I went back out there again. All right, I'm going after it again. Well, this time we get pushed out of bounds. Now listen to what I tell you. I want everybody to listen right here. I got pushed out of bounds. We were out of bounds. Now on Karate Kid and Daniel-san and Cobra Kai, we go back to the middle and you reset. The referee will reset you. We'll touch gloves and then we'll start again. Not in this tournament. There was no such thing as reset. I assumed. I did not know the rules. So the moment that I walked back in, the moment that my feet crossed the line, and I thought he was just coming with me to line up and touch gloves, the moment I went back out there, the lights went out in Knoxville. I got kicked so hard, didn't even see it coming, like Chris Tucker. "Which one of y'all kicked me?" I got kicked in the jaw, and I didn't know who I was or where I was. So what I'm telling you is I assumed. And so many people assume that we're doing the right thing. That takes me into my financial business and mindset business. The status quo. We assume everything's right. Let's just go with the flow. But what happened is you have to take a next step to make sure that you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, "I'm doing everything I can to be the best for me and for those who depend on me." I had everything. I had the willingness, the good intentions, the confidence, but I didn't know the rules. And so how embarrassing was it? I didn't know who I was, where I was. Hey, let me just straighten this out. He didn't knock me down And I didn't say I quit. Thankfully, my sensei quit for me, but I couldn't feel my molars for like 2 weeks. But
Wow.
that little thing, I didn't take that extra step to study the rules. So sometimes we can't see our own picture because we're stuck inside our frame. And that's where a good coach or having help point some of that stuff out can really help you to get where you're trying to go.
No, and I love that you segued into that, because that was going to be one of the next questions I asked. Is there's so many people that won't hire a coach or won't invest in someone to mentor them in to help them get to that next level. I know you've talked a little bit about it, but what is there another breakthrough or paradigm shift that you've had since you obviously you said Coach Burke, and love Coach Burke, by the way, and what he's meant to you, but what other breakthrough have you had since that Monster Nation? You talked about going there, and then you went up to him and said, we're going to be, doing big things together. And then you were a speaker. What was one of the biggest breakthroughs that you've had since hiring a coach, or investing in a coach is probably a better way to say it?
So I guess I would say I just never thought about even having a coach. I didn't see the need of it, but I don't know that it ever was proposed to me either. Never thought about it.
Yeah.
But then when you hear it, like Tiger Woods' coach, he probably can't outplay Tiger Woods in a true game of golf, but he can look and see something that maybe can be shifted or adjusted that Tiger Woods is doing to make his game better. Right? Yeah. And so my thing is, the biggest thing is you don't need more money, you need more people.
Yeah.
So the connection that I'm really having with people, telling my story, that's a connection. Man, I got my mom in me. I love some people. And I believe, listen, this is where I get fired up. I believe everybody's created on purpose, for a purpose.
Yeah.
I believe everybody is.
Yeah.
87% of people go to their grave and never discover their purpose. And that's, not to jump off subject, but I want to disrupt that.
Yeah.
But I'm very protective, because the financial industry, there's a lot of people getting took advantage of. And so I have value. I have that unique ability that God's given me. And if I didn't share this, if I didn't put it out there, I'm robbing the world of who God called me to be. For a while, I ran from that because I let voices in my head say, you just want to speak and get on stages to attract people to your financial business. And you know what? That scared me to death. It did. I didn't want, hey, I'm not getting near that line. But that's when that's the line that I was running from. But that's the line that God was calling me to cross. I'm calling you to a marketplace ministry. I'm calling you to live an integrated life. And that's when I realized I'm going to be held accountable to Him. I don't care what everybody else says.
Sure.
So when you hear me, you're going to hear about finances. You're going to hear about my faith.
Yeah.
And so, it's exactly what he said. You don't need more money. You need more people. And the more people that you can impact, my past can help somebody else's future. Again, I went to bed thinking about money. How's this going to work out? How am I going to make ends meet? That commission's not going to be paid. This hadn't been signed yet. Y'all know these applications, Lord have mercy, the applications in life insurance and Medicare and all that stuff. But, you want to hurry that up. And so I just have a whole new outlook on the whole entire thing. And it's all following Him, pursuing excellence instead of pursuing success.
Yeah.
Excellence is inside and who God's called me to be. That's all I got to worry about. It's my lane right here. It's my lane.
Yeah.
So
And it sounds so simple. Like a lot of people don't know how to differentiate between that, right? Because so much that we hear today is about success, 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 and nobody ever really chases significance, or nobody ever chases impact. And you've seen this and you preached it this whole podcast today, is that I have found in my life that, even the more impact I make, it's like a byproduct of true impact is income. Like
yes,
income comes in, whether we're serving people in our insurance business, or whether, even doing something as simple as this. My wife and I went and spoke at an insurance conference last weekend in the Carolinas. We were up in Raleigh, by the way,
okay, yeah,
and have a good friend up there. And I would have never met that person if I wouldn't have went to an event in Dallas, Texas about 3 years ago. And because of, I believe it was a divine connection, and because they saw the impact that I was making, they said, hey, we want you to come and impact our agents. And so I totally agree with you. And I'm guilty too. I mean, I have to raise my hand. I don't want to be a hypocrite here, but
right,
I've been guilty most of my life chasing money and chasing success. And not because I, had just this insatiable love for money, but it took people speaking into my life to so I could have that paradigm shift, so I could get outside of that frame, as you talked about. So I love everything that you're speaking today. Let me ask you this, and I talk to people, or I ask this question every time somebody comes on the podcast. So the new version of you, what is one word you would use to describe Chad?
there's a couple of words.
All right, go with a couple. We'll go with a couple.
No, I'm 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 purpose driven. I mean,
Okay.
I'm living on purpose. So purpose, that's a
Okay.
big thing.
Okay. So define that for us, though. What does that mean, and how has that contributed to the impact you're making now?
So it comes down to the realization that God showed me that I was created on purpose for a purpose. And it was those words. Everything I do, there's a purpose.
Mm,
My relationship with my kids, there's purpose there. And there's real purpose there. Legacy is not just what I can leave to my kids,
sure.
materialistic and all that. I'm pouring into my boys, pouring into them. I'm loving on them. I'm correcting them, but I'm communicating with them. I'm being I'm just I don't want them to go down that trap.
Yeah.
My oldest son, he's a baseball player. He's a stud of a baseball player and was going to play next level and decided he didn't want to do it no more. Well, since he was 4 years old, he's had a bat in his hand. That was a hard pill for me to swallow, but I had to step back. Am I going to push him into that? Because he is a very godly young man
Hmm.
and he pursues God's purpose. And he's been prayerfully making a decision through this. And he faced us like a young man and told us, hey, it's not my passion anymore. I'm going to finish my senior year. And I owe it so much to you guys, what y'all have put into me. But I hope y'all understand. His little voice was quivering, man.
Hmm.
And I sat there and I wanted to get him in headlocks, what I want to do. You know what I mean? You're a superstar. But guess what? That ain't me. I want to throw buoys out in his life, to navigate through, not barriers,
Sure.
you know? And so I think that just purpose, man. I live intentional. I'm present. That was the other thing. When I said two, I'm present. I listen to understand
Mm,
because everybody has a story. And that's in my relationships and that's in my business.
yeah.
How do you like talking to people when you start talking to them and then all, oh yeah, we did that last week and we did about 2 weeks ago. You ain't even heard what I'm about to tell you,
Sure.
cuz. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
But listen to understand. Listen to where these people are coming from and what might seem petty. to you, it's real to them. And so that whole new Chad, I'm just trying to listen. I'm jacked up too. I mess up every day, but I'm really just trying to have the ears of God and have the eyes of God. I try
Yeah.
that, try to be that, understand, So
Yeah.
I'm present. I am where my
Yeah.
feet are. And because I don't want to miss the blessings right here in front of me.
Yeah, as we get ready to close out today, I mean, as I was saying that, a lot of times we don't realize that we've married something else or that we've gotten consumed, and it doesn't allow us to be present. So I definitely love the fact that you brought that up about being present. But listen, we've been doing this podcast thing. Time flies when you're spitting some fire today, and I want to respect your time. And I know we've been doing this a minute, but couple of more things, if I may. Number one is, what if there's someone out there today that is really struggling to discover? Now you're back. Now I see your picture.
Good. Okay, good.
So struggling today to find that purpose. Because I tell people, it's really hard to live on purpose when you don't realize that you were created on purpose.
That's right.
And so what if there's somebody out there who's really struggled with that? Maybe they're not a person of faith, or maybe they are, that are listening or watching this, and they want to really, really understand what it means to be created on purpose so they can live on purpose. What's some fire, what's some life, what's some inspiration that you could speak into them to begin to discover that, and so they can be intentional and start being in alignment with God and making an impact?
Yeah, so I always start with that actual foundational verse for an answer like that. Jeremiah 29:11 is a very important verse for me too. But
Sure.
if you go back to Proverbs 19:21, we can make all the plans we want. And I think there's an entrepreneurial Bible version that I read one time. We can make all these charts and blueprints and plans we want, but God's purpose will prevail. So I
Sure.
do have a simple formula almost that I heard from Ben Newman, which is a
Yeah.
performance coach. All right. You control your belief system, period. So start with that. On a scale from 0 to 5, how much do you believe in yourself that you are of value,
Yeah.
or that you are created on purpose for purpose? When you say that you believe that you're created on purpose for purpose, you can say that and not know what your purpose is. I'm giving you
Sure.
permission. Understand that. I'm not
Yeah.
asking if you know your purpose,
Yeah.
but do you think that you are wonderfully and uniquely made by God on
Yeah.
purpose? You control that scale. So if it's a 2, it can become a 5.
Mm.
All right. You control that. Once you believe that, once you move that scale and believe, hey, I don't know what it is, but I believe I'm created on purpose for purpose. Then you start taking a step, one step at a time. Don't look at the whole stairwell, one step at a time. In my spiritual life, what's my next step? My knowledge. What can I learn today that can get me
Sure.
closer to my be or my purpose?
Mm.
What can I be? What's my next step to become a better version of myself? And you just start taking steps. All right. Once you start, in my opinion, once you just start being who God wants you to be, you
Yeah.
don't take a clean car to the car wash. You just say, God, show me where you're trying to take me. And then it's one step at a time. There will come a day that you will start tracking. And when that happens, you're going to tap into your potential. And that potential is potential you never knew you had. So your belief system, boom, you start walking. That'll tap into potential. And that potential is going to overflow. And that's going to come over to your performance. Now you got the can't stop, won't stop. because now you know who you are. You're created on purpose for a purpose, and you are on a mission. And then when that happens, now you're profitable and unstoppable. Period. So it
Yeah.
starts with the belief system. What do you think about that? Either you think you're created on purpose or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No, I
so,
love that. I love that you're giving people permission too to say it's okay if you don't fully know that purpose yet, right? But
yes.
don't let that stop you from taking those action steps.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this too, because somebody needs to hear this.
Sure.
Don't you dare let your past dictate who you are or
Mm,
where you're going. Because a lot
yeah.
of people, that next step that I talked about, the next step is forgiving yourself. We're not perfect, man. I jacked up. I said that earlier. We have to forgive ourselves. Maybe we made a decision that really, all the decisions we make is kind of a sum to where we are right now.
Sure.
But you also got to go over here and look that all things work out for the good. All things
Yeah.
come together. So you got to forgive yourself, learn from it, and keep moving. Keep moving. But forgive yourself. Maybe somebody else you need to forgive.
Yeah.
They don't have to reciprocate that, but you need to let that go. You need to forgive somebody else. Maybe
Yeah.
there's something in your life that, you know, you're you're so thirsty. You're so thirsty, right? But what is this right here? What is this that's keeping you from taking that next step or for taking that drink of water? There's something
Yeah.
that you're scared of. There's something that's going on. There's a tab preventing you from taking your next step.
Yeah. No, I love that. I articulate it this way that don't let the mess of yesterday keep you from the mission that God has for you today. And Chad speaking to you and saying your failure is not final,
That's right.
right? If you messed up, you've blown it. Listen, we all have. I've royally blown it at different seasons in my life. And I have to believe that God's has enough grace to cover all my junk, and that, in my opinion, Chad, in a life of a believer, I believe that we always fail forward because of grace, because of
Yes.
God's grace. So I love what you're doing here to close it out and spitting some fire here at the end. Before we close shop today, where can we find you? Are you on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube? Give us some
Yeah.
places where we can connect with you.
Yes, I'm still building that whole infrastructure out, like others are. But you can go to chadfree.com, chadfree.com, and you can connect with me there. And then I've got some links there. I'm on Facebook. I've got a Facebook group, Chad Free. It's called the Mindset and Money Revolution. And that's wake up and pursue your purpose. But it's the Mindset and Money Revolution. You can join me there, follow me there. Um, Look, man, I'm on a mission, mindset and money. And I'll if I could, I do want to speak just a little bit to the money part.
Yeah, absolutely. Close us out with that.
So I'm so different than traditional advisors. And I guess it's that protective spirit. So I wrote a book called Wake Up Your Retirement. I'm redoing that book because of the new Chad, right? I want to put
Sure.
some more purpose behind it. But there's just so many things out there. There's a whole level of planning that takes place up here that's not being marketed and shared down here to the masses. And a lot of
Mm,
financial people that are bigwigs are taking advantage of that planning for themselves and for their families, but they don't want others to know because guess what? It's not profitable to them. And I'm not saying all of them, but when you have the top CEOs in the world using these strategies for their families and not marketing that, and that's not the way they make their income, there's something wrong. And I'll tell you how I really know this. I took a gentleman one time, he saw me doing an interview, And he said, "What are you doing?" And we looked at his money. He had it at an old traditional firm that's in every city. And so we looked at it and we did a projection. And I like to look at retirement income. Everybody keeps your
Yeah.
focus on the nest egg. If I can get that nest
Yeah.
egg. Well, he was looking at having about $31,000 to $33,000 in his retirement income once he retired, before taxes. We took that same money, restructured it, and now he's at $105,000 to $108,000 tax
Wow.
free, and he's never going to experience any market volatility. Now, I say all of that because that's big, right? That's 3 times the money. But he goes back to his advisor to ask for some of the account numbers, all right? And the advisor obviously says, "What you're going to do," and I don't have no shame talking like this. And so he begins to tell him, and the advisor looked at him and said, "Well, I could have done that for you." What? What do you mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the way I'm taking
Yeah.
it. You mean to tell me you should have told him, "I didn't know you wanted me to get you as much out of retirement as I could." But the crazy thing is, number one, that institution would not allow him to sell that. But number two, fast forward 4 years, which ends up being like 5 months ago, their paths crossed again. My new client, his old client, and him. He actually told him, "I put all my money in that strategy as well." Guys, wake up. Wake up. Wake up your retirement.
Yeah.
You have to, don't assume. Don't assume. And I need people. I need people with me on this mission, like-minded people. You don't have to quit your day job. You can have a 6-figure side hustle if you want.
Sure.
But
Yeah. I
we need
love that.
people.
And someone who grew up with a single mom and didn't have a lot of financial literacy growing up, that's just been something over the past several years that I'm beginning to learn. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because money can be sink the battleship if you don't know how to, where to put it, where to invest it. And this is what Chad's talking about too, getting around people that know this, and you and I'm speaking to me, and then those listening and watching, humble enough to connect with someone like a Chad, to say, "Hey, I need help." That goes back to that coach, right? Maybe he's your money coach, your investment coach, your strategy coach. And so it takes humility. It takes lowering that pride and saying, "I need help in this specific area." Well, Chad, it's been awesome, man. There's so many more things we could talk about. We could be here for
Yeah,
another 2 hours and keep
that's
going, but
right.
I want to respect your time, and I know we got a lot of things going on, but just want to say thank you for coming on the podcast, spitting some serious fire today. And as we close, I just want to look in the camera, and I want you to come in really close, or if you're listening on the audio version, we do this because I pray that we put some fresh wind in your sails. Life, it's real easy to get the life sucked out of you. It's real easy to get punched in the gut by life and have no fresh wind, if you will. And I interview people like Chad because I pray that something that we talked about today puts that fresh wind back in your sails, is a catalyst for you to start believing in yourself and realize, as Chad and I have talked about numerous times in this podcast, that you were created on purpose, for a purpose. And I'm even going to go a step further. You will never, ever truly be fulfilled in this life until you're in alignment with that purpose. I'm
Amen.
just telling you, I've been there, done that. I've been around the block a few times. Chad has too. So I pray that something that we talked about today, something that we discussed, allows you to see that you were created for more and you don't have to settle. And so I'm just going to challenge you guys today to make it an awesome day. God bless you guys, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
Thank you, guys.
All right, let's see what we got here. All right, so